Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily Weekend right here on ChannelOne TV. My name is Jude, Duncan. Just gone by a conversation with our real estate, certified consultant Samira Dede, taking us through how to prep your homes for the seasons. Right? We'll segue from that conversation into an incredible initiative to raise the next generation of basketball talents. But not only that, an initiative also aimed at economic development through sports. And we are privileged to be joined in the studio by Pops Mensah-Bonsu. He's seen it all, done it all at the highest level of basketball, played in the NBA, and is now back home, literally, to help the next generation of basketball talents. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Amazing. I was discussing with Eno, and we're trying to come up with some Ghanaians who've played in the NBA, right? I don't even think we got up to 4 names or 3 names, but you've seen it all, done it all. Talk to us about the transition from being a professional basketball player. You're still involved, but your next phase looks like you're more into helping the next generation. Looking back, what do you miss about your time being a professional?
Well, for me, when I got to the NBA and I realized I was only the second Ghanaian to play in the NBA. At the time. Yeah, I knew there was a level of responsibility that I had and that was bestowed on me. Some of it self-imposed, but like my mother said, if you can do something within your reach, do it. Yeah. And so I wanted to not be the last Ghanaian in the NBA. I wanted to make sure I made something of my career and inspired a generation with my efforts on the court. When I retired, I became an executive in the NBA and worked my way up the ranks on the executive side, but there was still something lacking for me. There was a level of fulfillment and purpose that I wanted to accomplish and inspire a generation in Ghana for those who look like me. So in 2019, we started Seed Academy Ghana. We did our first camp here at ICGC Oboso Okai. Yeah. And I've told this story a few times, but it's a special one, one of revelation where we did a camp for about 100 kids, and over the course of 2 days, 400 showed up, and that was a catalyst.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, right? And that was a catalyst for me to establish Seed Academy Ghana, something more sustainable, something that could help the development of not only basketball players but future leaders in Ghana. And since 2019, we've done a number of camps, a number of events to be consistent when it comes to building this community. And like you said, just a few months ago, I moved back home to Ghana to, really establish this basketball ecosystem, but establishing something that helps empower and inspire future leaders of tomorrow.
Amazing.
How has the transition been, from playing basketball and moving into managerial position and now your academy and then moving back home? How's the transition been?
It's been an interesting one. Especially a lot of people on the NBA side probably thought I was crazy to, step away from a managerial position and move back home. But, like I said, it's one of fulfillment and purpose. And we know that it's not just about building professional athletes at Seed Academy Ghana. It's about establishing something that's going to empower a younger generation, especially young ladies. A lot of our camp and our academy is built up of young women because we know the power of sports. It's going to allow you to be competitive, work as a team, breed confidence, but most of all, it's going to develop a leadership characteristic that it could be dormant in a lot of these kids. It may not be basketball. I always tell parents, get your kids into sports, especially young ladies. I heard a stat the other day that 90% of women in the C-suite positions all play the sport.
Wow.
They all play the sport.
Amazing.
There's a number of characteristics that comes from playing a sport that leads into powerful positions for women.
I used to start playing basketball again. I used to play basketball
when
I was in high school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
you
fun.
were a power forward, right?
Yeah,
I forgot what you played. Interesting. Ghana is a football head crazy country, right? Overwhelmingly, the numbers still towards football. Even though we play basketball a lot at the junior level, we've not really made that kind of gains. Proud to bring in Seed Academy to Ghana. what did the picture look like in terms of initiatives like that helping the next generation of basketball talent? Did it even exist prior to your coming?
Yes, there was definitely some initiatives that existed, but whether they got the recognition, the resources or the funding remains to be seen. So, you know, we wanted to establish something that can open the eyes, whether it be the governing bodies, parents, local communities, to see that, you know, basketball is a viable sport. It's not only a hobby. I even had to convince my parents. You know, I was a few months away from playing in the NBA.
I can imagine.
Before my parents realized how significant and impactful the sport was going to be on my life and then on our life as a whole.
We'll come to the Seed Academy and delve into it much deeper, and of course the Basketball African League, which are also playing integral roles in all of that. But let me just take you back a little. You were the first Ghanaian British really to play at the Olympic Games, right? Talk to us about that experience, considering the fact that the British national basketball team had not been to the Olympics in years. You know, how was that whole feeling like playing for the team, you know?
It was powerful. It was powerful. You know, I always say getting to play in the Olympics is a special moment, but getting to play in the Olympics 10 minutes from where I was born is a feeling that you can't really put.
It was in London.
It was in London, yeah. I was born maybe 15, 20 minutes away from the stadium.
Wow.
And letting my family and my parents get a chance to see me walk on that Olympic stage was amazing, and the experience was amazing. But I got a number of messages seeing Mensah-Bonsu in the back of my jersey and saying, this guy's Ghanaian. Why is he not playing for Ghana? And that's one of the first times I realized that something needed to be done. Something needed to be developed where Ghanaians could get an opportunity to play on that same stage. So that's when the idea of coming back home, of establishing something in Ghana through the game of basketball to get Ghana on that stage came about.
I saw your Harvard Business Review video talking about all the projects you've been up to. Quite, an incredible story really shared at that stage. But we'll take a video really.
Yeah, we have a video.
Try to recap.
We have video, huh?
Yeah, try recap, So we could take a look at this video. We'll be back, we'll continue the conversation. There's still a lot more to discuss with our guest in studio today, Pops Mensah-Bonsu. Like I said, seen it all, done it all at the highest level of professional basketball.
When we came here a few years ago, we noticed that there was a lot more skilled guys here. They were raw in some of those places, but you could be like, we could mold something out of a player. If they've got the physicals, did the camp here, and the kid comes to me and it's like, he can actually play. I remember, if I saw him there, I remember exactly, probably closer to my age now, but he could play, and he comes up to me and says, I want to go to high school. I said, okay, we could probably work something out. Like, how old are you? He was like, I'm 22. He couldn't even go to college. His window of opportunity kind of closed. So I was like, we're kind of doing them a disservice if we don't provide something or put something in place so that never happens again.
Wow, there's a lot more happening that the video doesn't even capture, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully, Pops is here in studio to share more light into some of the amazing things they are doing. We know you also run the Pops Mensah-Bonsu, cohort, training. How has it been for all the years running, since 2019, I'm told. What's been the experience like?
Yeah, so, as I stated before, we started with the Pops Mensah-Bonsu camp, and seeing the turnout and seeing the involvement and engagement that we had with the kids, that's when we established Seed Academy Ghana in 2019. And we intended to do camps and events from that point. But as we all know, in 2020, COVID happened. So that kind of slowed things down for a couple years. So, I learned, a friend of mine told me, consistency builds community. And with us being unable to do in-person camps, we had to figure out a way to still engage the community that we're looking to build. So in 2020, we had a virtual camp where about 250 participants joined. We had speakers like Luau Deng from South Sudan, Amadou Gallo, mentor of mine, and the godfather of basketball, and the person who I actually...
And it's funny, because he didn't even play professional basketball,
No,
right?
he didn't. But his influence on the game is extensive. So, we had a number of speakers, and, a part of Seed Academy is a lot of our off-court programming, character development, life skills training, and we do have a community service component too. So, where we use basketball as a vehicle to inspire and empower kids here in Ghana, and, the off-court programming is key for us, because we know it's going to develop the future leaders of tomorrow.
In that video I saw you touring a facility. Most of our courts are outside. And I know basketball is an indoor game. How are we going to do that in Ghana?
Well, that's the process. It's luckily, I wouldn't say luckily, but we have the climate that allows us to play outside. But with developing players and having equitable access to facilities, we have to adhere to the elements. We did a 3-on-3 tournament 2 years ago, and it rained for a few hours. It was in rain season.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And, we had to sit there. And, I almost canceled the event because I'm like, what are we going to do? But seeing the eyes of those kids and seeing the desire in them, we decided to do it. And after a couple hours, it stopped. And luckily, because of the climate here, it dried up. But again, it amplified the need for infrastructure and resource to be brought to Ghana. And so we continue to extract that content. Thank you for, saying that our content is great, but we know that it has to be compelling. It has to be compelling enough to bring funding in, to raise awareness to basketball in Ghana and create that equitable access.
How does one sign up for the academy?
Yeah, so we have we're on social media, Seed Academy Ghana on Instagram, we're on TikTok. You can, my page, Pops and Bonsu at Instagram also, you can reach out to us, and we partner with local academies. We partner with about 13 local academies, 10 or so in Ghana, in Accra, Cape Coast, and Kumasi. So whichever region you're in, we want to make sure that you can get access to it. And part of the reason why we're doing this Impact Tour is because we normally do our tours in Accra.
Yeah.
But with almost 1,000 kids under our umbrella, we want to create equitable access to everybody. So now, instead of bringing all of the kids to Accra, we decided to take the show.
When are you going up north? When are you going up north?
That was part of the vision. That is part of the vision.
Right.
This time we'll go to Kumasi and Cape Coast, two basketball-rich regions in Ghana. But we fully intend to go to Tamale, to Takoradi, to the northern region, and continue to access those underserved communities, because they have talent, they have we want to grab the opportunity, and we need the resource we need to provide the resource. We have to provide that resource. So
amazing.
That is in the plan.
This is a fascinating project, right? Obviously with some success at this point, but just to put you on the spot, maybe very briefly, it seems you have the talent, like you said, right? Young guys in Ghana love the game. They watch the game. Girls. People stay up very late to watch the playoffs. There's definitely the interest, but we don't seem to be getting basketball, as a sport and as a business right in this country, but Seed Academy and probably Sprite Ball, which used to be big back in the day, it seems there's really no clear direction or plan to maximize the potential of the game here. Beyond Seed Academy, what should we be seen to be doing right to make basketball work in Ghana?
I mean, but looking at it from a 360 view, you know, we're developing an ecosystem. So when at Seed Academy Ghana, we understand that you can't just develop the players. We want to make sure we're developing the coaches, the referees, the performance staff, whether it be medical, strength and conditioning, nutrition, and at all of our camps, there's some of these components in it to open the eyes of these players and understand that there's a lot more than just playing the game. So we also expose them to the different fields. You know, some kids want to get into marketing, broadcasting, there's operations, there's a number of different
so it's not just playing.
It's not just playing.
It's beyond playing.
It's beyond
360.
playing.
What's been your level of engagement with, you know, duty bearers, right? You have a sports ministry in Ghana, you know, doing his vetting. He promised not to be a football minister, you know, pledging support for other sporting disciplines. So what's been your engagement with, you know, the stakeholders, government, you know, private sector, you know, any other group responsible for the growth of sports, basketball in the country?
Well, we're here to raise awareness to that and hold them to those words and turn those words into actions where they see other viable sports and disciplines outside of just football. You know, as you can see at some of our camps, we've had a large participation with young boys and girls. Now we need the access to resource and infrastructure. So, you know, we're continuing to work and we're continuing to grow. But for us to grow adequately, we need that access to the infrastructure, the funding, and help to allow these kids to have equitable access to those resources.
What's the dream? If you get my question, what's the dream for basketball in Ghana, the Seed Academy, Ghana?
Your Martin Luther King moment, basketball related.
I'll say this. The dream is to do what somebody did for me when I was a kid. And I remember being about 12 or 13 playing basketball and having an NBA player come to where I was in London and the impact that it had on my life, that it inspired and empowered me to want to become a professional athlete and say, when I get to that stage, what I would do. And, you know, I want to be able to do that to the masses. I also, you know, want to, on the court, if you look at what South Sudan did, Sudan did, you know, just 14 years ago, they weren't even a country.
Yeah.
Now they're deemed the best team in Africa and on the Olympic stage.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make sure that in years to come, Ghana is on a similar stage.
Wow.
Wow.
Talking about South Sudan, we've seen and their performance at the world stage. We've seen the Basketball Africa League, you know, rise quite rapidly. You know, you've been an integral part of this whole setup. Some teams in Ghana have emerged doing quite well for themselves. You know, I'm sure you've heard of Spintex.
Spintex Knights, yeah.
Knights, you know, what's your take around, number one, the basketball ecosystem with regards to teams, and also, this is the 5th year the Basketball Africa League is running. What do you envisage would be the future for the league?
Well, I'll say, I can't say what the future of the league will be, but I know what the future of Ghana is going to be within that. You know, part of me moving back here was to develop that ecosystem so that Ghana can have a team, Ghana can have the infrastructure to have a league and a team that can participate in the Basketball Africa League. And in those years to come, you know, we will have that. You know, again, I'm not just here to develop Seed Academy Ghana. It's this whole basketball ecosystem and using the game of basketball to not only inspire a younger generation and empower them to be leaders, but to also develop that ecosystem to help Ghana on a socio-economic level. Amazing.
Can you just run through with us the details for the events, right? So it's happening in Accra from Monday.
Yes.
Then from Accra, we go.
So on the 21st, we're in Cape Coast.
Okay.
We go from Cape Coast and then it's a tour. So we're driving from Cape Coast back to Accra. We do our camp, Cape Coast University, on the 21st. We drive to Accra, and then on the 22nd, we're at Atomic Basketball Courts.
Okay.
Then on the 24th, we will go to Kwame Nkrumah University and do the tour there. So we'll be driving around Ghana, you know, accessing these regions to have this, because it's an impact tour. We want to make sure we have touch points in as many regions as possible. Now, this is the first of many. We want to make sure we're going to all of the regions in Ghana to access these underserved communities.
Amazing. Are you open for sponsorship? If there's someone
Are we
watching
open for, yes.
Of course,
We're
always.
open.
That was an emphatic yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, I mean, we again, it's a emerging sport in Ghana, but the access, the culture and love for it is extensive. So we want to make sure that the resources and infrastructure are, reflect that too. So whether it's the governing bodies, private sponsors, we're definitely open to, to bringing in those partnerships so that we can continue to build this.
Our time is almost up, but let me quickly, the NBA playoffs are, they're starting today. So who do you tip to win?
Well, I mean, I'm still employed by the New York Knicks, so we're playing.
Saw that coming.
Yeah, we're still, I still, obviously my allegiance is the team that I work for, but it's going to be an interesting interesting playoffs. With it looks like the disparity between the teams in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference is really close. So. As you can see in Denver, they just fired their coach, and they're one of the best teams in the NBA, and they're probably going to have the MVP. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I'm looking forward to it.
You played for the Dallas Mavericks, right? What are your thoughts around trading Luka for Anthony Davis? Let me just put you on the spot.
That's a great question. I mean, if I put my executive hat on, it was a gutsy move. A gutsy move. Yeah. Luka is a generational player. He's a generational player, and those kinds of moves, that has never been done before. You've never seen a player not even in his prime yet. He's 24, 25 years old, and to be traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, it was a gutsy move. Which remains to be seen if it's going to bear fruit. But to the masses, it's a little bit of a head scratch as to why it happened and the reasoning behind it. But like I said, I know those guys over there in Dallas, and I'm sure they have their reasons for doing so. But I'm also sure that the Lakers are excited to have a player like LeBron James and then a player who mimics his style of play in Luka Doncic on the same team. So I think the future is bright for the NBA regardless.
I saw an article where you mentioned your top 5 all-timer list, right? Has that changed or still?
What did I say?
I think you had LeBron at number 3.
Really? Where did you get this list from?
I probably, let me just pull it up.
You're going to pull it up?
But just before that, director, please give me a minute, right? I beg you, Solomon understand.
Make sure it was me. All I want to get.
Just a minute.
Did you find it?
We could always do it again.
You have a birthday wish you want to say before, not you,
Oh, me?
It's your birthday today?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I've already done it. It was a birthday message to Selena Mwakon. I've already done it.
Okay, yeah. So I have the list here. So you had your top 5 all-timer. You had number 1, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kevin Garnett, number 2, LeBron James, number 3, Michael Jordan, number 4, Gary Payton, number 5. Remember this list?
Wow, when was this list?
That was probably
This was a while ago, but I think I had to do it by position, and I cheat in that way because it saves me from having to have an argument which some people in my team will have issue with. But I'll say this in position. I will go Magic Johnson as a point guard, Michael Jordan as a shooting guard, LeBron James as a small forward. I said Kevin Garnett because he was my favorite player, but in all due respect, there's Tim Duncan and Hakeem.
I used to be called that back in school.
Oh my goodness, Jude.
Just because you had the same surname.
Don't do that.
I feel you completely on that. Interestingly, you had a number 1, your favorite books. One of my favorite books as well, Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama.
Wow.
I just knew that you are the guy.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And we wish you well with the Seed Academy, and we will
come.
support it in any way that we possibly can.
Atomic basketball courts.
We'll be there. We'll definitely.
And shout outs to all the guys. I posted this on my socials, and the guys were so happy, excited, looking forward to this. They are watching. I've seen some of your messages. Unfortunately, I couldn't read all of them. But it's happening at the Atomic Basketball Court near the Kwabena roundabout. So if you are here, you're a basketball lover, you're a fan, just make sure you are there to have a great time. Thank you so much, folks, once again. It's been a pleasure. The big issue with Solomon Adonu is up next. We'll be here same time tomorrow for
At
Sunday
7
breakfast.
a.m. bright and early.
Exactly.
Bye.
Bye-bye.